Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. It's great to have such a large edition of Unlimited this year, because I think there are always clusters coming together, and one of these clusters represented by today's guests. It's Alison Knowles to my left. She makes and she stages every day of Unlimited this amazing performance, Make a Salad. And I hope all of you are digesting an Alison Knowles salad right now. And I mean, it's ongoing until Sunday. If you hadn't had a chance, please come back. Then we have Tim Rollins and K.O.S. So this is Tim Rollins. We have Angel Abreu, and we have Rick Wallman. And to the very right, there's Davide Balula. He stages a piece, Mimed Sculpture, just at the beginning of Unlimited. And also, like, just to tell you about Tim Rollins and K.O.S., it's one of their signature pieces, so it's like torn out pages, or not torn out, but actually released pages from a book that were dipped into color and partly obscured. So we're going to talk about creating art in community. I mean, there's a long tradition of community art, and in contemporary art there are like different streams that came along, like relational aesthetics, that certainly also brought together a new sense of community. Maybe you remember Rick Tirovanit's piece last year on Weserplatz, where he fed the masses basically, and everybody had to wash up their bowl after eating, which was quite a nice moment. We're going to speak about different aspects of creating in community. I don't think that there are many parallel lines in your work. I think each of you is working in community, in different communities, is creating communities in a different way, also in different time frames. But I think nevertheless it's interesting to see the community as a tissue, almost as an artistic material, or as more as a tissue that you can work with and that you can trigger as an artist. We're gonna start with you, Alison. So first we're gonna speak and have the artist speak, or mostly. Alison, it's such a pleasure to have you here, and the title of my foreword in the catalog is Salad Days, and it was of course inspired by Make a Salad, but it's also like in your work, Make a Salad is such a fresh piece still, although the first time was many, many years ago in London, the first time you did that salad. And can you tell us a little bit, like, how does this public respond to your salad?
Oh, I was delighted with the response I had to the salad. People were lined up behind me, waiting for this very simple plate of green. And we had an amazing woman who did nothing but chop cucumbers madly. I mean, she chopped them just so. So we had carrots as well. And I had a wonderful large container. So I put on gloves and I mixed, I think you all were there in a way. I mixed up this huge salad, and I remembered London, I remembered other salads, and I like it because all of you can also remember making maybe a salad for a special occasion, or, I mean, salad has always been with us.
But the piece has certainly changed in its perception and reception, because, to start with eating habits, I think people, like, over 40 years ago had a different idea of what a salad is, probably, than today. Like, we have very healthy eating habits, it seems, nowadays, and health is such an issue.
Well, I think also the idea of eating is no longer a female occupation. I think, at least in my house, with my various husbands and friends, men can make a good salad too. And I think for me, it was a great pleasure here to reach into a huge colander of greens, which were all like perfect leaves. And I could, there we are mixing it in a carp. So you couldn't do this with lamb chops. You couldn't do with ice cream, you know. Salad is just the thing.
So the whole sensory, like you're speaking about the sense of touching, and also the audio component is quite important. So can you tell a little bit more about that? That you don't do only art for the tummy, of course, or for the eyes, but there are many more senses that you awake.
I thought it was wonderful to have this big tarp and to be able to throw the salad over the table into the tarp and have other people mix and roll it around, and I could pour the dressing onto the salad. Don't know any other food actually would adapt so well to scale. I mean, if you prepare French fries, but I mean just actually the preparation, the knocking it off the table, and then the pouring of the vinegar and oil onto it. I'm even after 1962, I'm still pretty pleased with that piece, and it went well here.
Maybe we should give a little introduction. I thought it was really interesting to read that your first teachers were painters, like Adolf Gottlieb, Richard Lindner, or Joseph Albers, but that you quickly found out that actually painting wasn't what you wanted to do, and you started to be around the Fluxus group and be part of the Fluxus group, and as one of there were only two women. We spoke about it briefly during lunch. There were only two women, you and Yoko Ono. Can you tell us a little bit more about how it was to be a performance artist, first of all, which was quite a far-out position back in the days, and being within that group of Fluxus?
Well, actually, both Richard Lindner and Adolf Gottlieb encouraged me to do things other than painting. I did not excel at painting. It was not only the problem of what I ended up with. It was that I really didn't have an immediate enough comeback to the act, and it was too, all evening at Pratt I would have to be painting from a model, and no, it was not for me. And immediately, with the help of George Machunas, who was a leader of Fluxus, I was able to step out on a stage to present something, which is what I had done as a child. So it's not that I'm an actress, but I'm some kind of a person to activate an idea rather than to write it, speak it.
Although writing plays an important role in your work, and that you use scores where you describe the work, I was amused to read that you were performing even at the White House for the president, and that you presented Shoes of Your Choice, also a performance from 1963. And I just want to read the score of Shoes of Your Choice. A member of the audience is invited to come forward to a microphone if one is available and describe a pair of shoes, the one he's wearing or another pair. He is encouraged to tell where he got them, the size, color, why he likes them, etc. So, who was the performer? The president?
No. President. But very active in that piece was Michelle Obama. What? It's true. Yes, right. She was a simply delightful person who gave us access to president, and sat there and watched us describe our shoes. And I think actually, as I look at it, there is no more personal piece of clothing than your shoes. You can get away with different coats and hats, but the shoes, you see, they have to fit right. And so I got obsessed with shoes, and I did a lot of collection and drawing, and I had a whole series of shoes that I'd picked up off the street. Okay.
It's a brief introduction. I think we're going to speak all together about the community aspect of your work, but thank you so much for those insights.
Most welcome.
Thank you. So I'm going to move on to Tim Rollins and K.O.S. I mean, Tim, you started to work actually in 1981 in the South Bronx. I think there was some kind of a mandate, maybe not really, but there was the possibility to work first within the context of a school, intermediate school 52 in the South Bronx. And I mean, it's hard to imagine. I think, of course, that we know the Bronx from films, and some of us have been there. There's a great museum. I mean, it's part of the city for sure, but there are a lot of stereotypes, I think, also that go around. And I mean, it's always thrilling to hear that in 1982 you would go to the Bronx, and that you would start to work with young pupils, with kids. And we have Angel and Rick, who are actually, are they really first generation? Is that like the class of 81?
Yeah, Angel was 11 and Rick was 13.
And they were at the very beginning.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I want to ask you, like, how long it took to understand, like, how you could basically find a method, you know, to jam, because that's the verb that you use. It's like a form of jamming, and it was nice. The feedback of all three of you about Stan Douglas' piece, like this jam session at Columbia Records, which is in Unlimited. And it shows actually, the potential of jamming. And so I was wondering if you could say a little bit more about like how this jamming came about and how you create freedom, but also set maybe certain rules.
Without structure, there's no freedom. And just to put this in context of the conversation, and first of all, I'm with one of my heroes here. We could not have done work like we do without you, Alison. For real.
Thank you so much.
I'm not kidding. I moved to New York from the woods of Maine to study with Joseph Kossuth and John Cage. Mm-hmm.
I could not be what I'm doing without John Cage.
Yes. Here you go. And I'll go into Baptist preacher mode, but my great hero growing up as a child was Martin Luther King Jr. And he talks about three kinds of love. And the first kind of love is eros. And you remember that? It's love that, it's physical love. Then there's another love, it's called philia, which I feel here, it's a fellowship of people with similar concerns. But then there is the super love. It's agape love. Agape from the Greek, it means you love somebody that doesn't look like you, doesn't talk like you, doesn't walk like you, doesn't eat like you, doesn't love like you. But what the greatest thing to do is you can build something together to build what he called the beloved community. And what my greatest pride, and I share it with Angel and Rick and Logan, he's a new member, is that art builds a beloved community. You would not be here if you didn't have a love for art. It's like a Thanksgiving Day dinner every day. Every day is a day of Thanksgiving. I'm going to the salad table now because, and
This is what brought us together. This
that's
is why
what
we're
brought
here.
us together, and it just happened naturally and organically, and it is persisted for over 30 years.
And going back to Stan Douglas, we were walking through Unlimited, and I walk into the Stan Douglas booth, and they're just jamming, and it just reminded me so much of how we work together as a group, but through the visual arts, and it's the same type of energy that everyone has when you look at the jamming session that we have in our studio. It's an explosion of just pride, joy, and creativity when we step into the studio.
And trust. I mean, it's a lot of trust. We check our egos when we go into the studio, and without sounding like some sort of utopian kind of enclave, it's not what it is because it's never perfect. I'm sure a lot of us can relate to, but there's trust and love.
And joy.
Like how maybe a similar question. I mean, between 1981 and now, so many things have happened, and I mean, the kids of survival probably find a different battleground. I mean, it's still a battle, I guess, to be raised in New York City and to find your place and to find a way to generate an income and to. I mean, it's a very challenging city, and it got even more challenging, I think, through the real estate prices that eat themselves up into all boroughs actually of the city, and that's very impressive. But still, like hits of survival. I mean, if you think, I mean, it's a cliche, it's a stereotype, but you think of this burned ground, in the South Bronx of like drug wars, of dead people in the street, of a grim reality. And I mean, it sounds for me almost like film material. There comes a man, and he teaches the kids to make art, and you use like pages from books, which is like a strong reference to literature, of course, and to be able to read. I mean, if you have a page of a book and you can't read, it's just an image. But basically to decipher it in a proper way, or like to get to that literature level of a book page, you have to be able to read. So, I mean, when you're 11 or 12, like some kids are very good readers, others are not. I mean, it's so individual also, like how are you able to concentrate, what kind of context you are in, like if somebody reads in your house and so on. But how was that? Like, were you welcome from the beginning, or were there like a lot of speeches to?
Well, and we were talking about this just yesterday. Tim demanded a certain level of excellence from us, and there was mutual respect. And what it was not a condescending kind of relationship. It wasn't you kids, it was no tapping on the head. It was more rise up because you are capable of doing this. And there was a quote that Tim would always say to me, and this is when I was 11 years old. And initially I did not understand it. It took me a while. But it was actually the great American philosopher W.E.B. Du Bois, who said, "I sit beside Shakespeare, and he winces not."
Sorry, you sit beside?
Shakespeare, and he winces not. And I thought, what does this mean? And it just was through years of our practice that it became very clear that we would get criticized. Tim would get criticized constantly. This work is not for these children. They're not meant to work within this context. And we changed that paradigm. and we continue to fight that battle.
And we've only just begun.
And there's a long way to go.
Absolutely.
Maybe as a last insight, the current work has been created for Unlimited. Can you tell us a little bit more about the concept, the author of the book, and like who was part of the jamming?
The book is a very under-known text by the great W.E.B. Du Bois. It's called Dark Water. He wrote it when he was 50. W.E. Du Bois is one of the greatest American philosophers and activists. And that's an aspect of what we want to talk about because, yes, I'm an artist, I'm an educator, but I was important in transforming the neighborhood. I was chairman of the historic district, and I was in groups like Mothers on the Move and Banana Kelly and South Bronx churches, and so this is not my only practice. My practice was, let's clean this place up, all right? And this happened when one of my kids got murdered at the age of 15, and I made a decision to stay and to fight. And it worked. So now the South Bronx is like Sesame Street. I mean, you're paying $1 a square foot. I mean, it's not it's not gentrified, it's not anything. It's just the community had to be pulled together, right? And it's a beloved community. And I'm not the only one that did it. You do it in concert with everybody that you live with, right? But you see a homeless person on our block? Hell no. We won't allow it. We'll get you some help. We're going to do something. You're going to you go to Chelsea, people laying down on 23rd Street. Yeah, no. So it is about concern. And what was exciting, and this is, Alison started this stuff, is that where you use art to build community, where is a way we get together. That's why we're all here, is because not just to come to an art show, we're here because we're concerned with people that like to create things. The dark water work, because it's an amazing text. And I thought my kids don't really know about Du Bois, but what we did is we worked in concert with the Bronx Museum of Art. I am now chair of the education committee at the Bronx Museum of Art. And I said, we got to do something really real. Just don't bring kids in on a school bus, show them the work, and then they go home. So we are starting a whole new curriculum. It's basically, it's like K.O.S. over again, after school, which I started, and I'm excited about it. And this was made with kids from 13 to 15 years old. This work that you see was made with those kids. Yes, wow. I won't talk about the system, and we're going to have a relationship with it's called the Rafael Hernandez Dual Language School, right down the block from the school. I'm excited about how art can build community, and it's like a block party. You know what a block party is? In old school, right? Some people, yeah, I see you nodding. Yeah, a block party, everyone just get together and we're all right, come on now. Yeah, and everyone gets together. And that's what's the most exciting thing about it. I don't care, relational aesthetics. Hello, I mean, we invented this shit in 1980, all right? And so it's not a big deal. I respect all those artists. I respect the theory, but she started it, we started it, and I'm so glad you included us in the conversation, because people got to know.
Thanks a lot, Tim, Angel, Rick. So we're going to go on with Davide Balula. I mean, it's a it's a community of mimes, but not only. I think your work is much broader than that. And you prepared some slides, so you're gonna show a little bit other aspects of your work. But I think for me, there's one work that I really thought of when I speak of community in regards to your work, Davide. And it would have been a possibility, I think, also to show it in Unlimited. It's that work that was done together with the choreographer Biba Bell. It's like a mechanical clock for 60 dancers, where basically, so all the dancers form a clock, and actually every minute, I think, one steps out, and every second, so it's a very precise clock. Every second a dancer steps out and measures the time, actually, through this communal body. What is remarkable with your work also is that you use all this different kind of medium, these different kind of tissues. Last year he did a work for parkour here in Basel. It was an ice cream that he did together with a chef from New York. And actually the flavor of the ice cream would portray some of his works, which was quite crazy. For example, he uses burned wood in his work, and so like one of the flavors was burned wood. But there are like many more. The background of Davide is actually music. Like his first formation is as a musician and composer, and he found then to contemporary art. And I think his mind frame is very open, and I don't really think that you will ever cut yourself down to certain categories. And it's really interesting how you work with people and how very often you collaborate with other people and with other communities, and that you tap those communities in your work.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. It's hard, yeah, maybe I don't see my work necessarily indeed as one form. I guess it's, I mean, and it's always hard to just see, like, explain, like, going from the center, but I guess my main concern indeed is being aware of what's around you, and I guess that's what, because that's the only way, I don't know, yeah, being like sensitive to what's around, and being first like what you see, what you hear, what you feel, what you smell, what you eat, and then like you introduced, Alison, like what you digest and what goes through you, and like whether it's ideas or like and things that change, and you always get those things wrong or right, but that's your own, and that's all, and you always try to share that with other people as much as you can, and so I guess I always try to choose the right way to formalize a project based on those, I guess, movements of being aware of your environment. So yeah, you talked about the ice cream. I just put some slides, which I think we should go very fast, because I felt like we should more like talk all between the two of us. So I'm gonna flip very fast as if it was like very quick. So just maybe to explain very fast, like the ice cream project was maybe for the people in the panel here who don't know my work at all. I know yours, and I'm very grateful. So I'm gonna try to just go very quick so you can understand a little bit of the other things. So the ice cream last year was based on some painting series that I continue and I've been doing for almost not 10 years, but almost. So like I made different flavors. I worked with a chef and we interpreted those paintings into different flavors of ice cream. And ice cream, just to be very fast, just like, it's a very interesting vehicle because it's basically just fat. And fat, which is also like what the brain is made of. But like it's just a vehicle for flavors. And so it's like if you leave an ice cream in your fridge next to, I don't know, like a salad that is rotting, yeah, ice cream is going to smell like the salad it's next to. I mean, that's not how we flavor the ice cream here, but that's kind of the principle. But so like the different ice creams are then like made on, like based on those burnt paintings that are the two paintings on the left. I actually have a little laser here, which is great. I feel like it's like cat catch. So like the burnt painting is made of burnt wood that it used, like creates an imprint. And so that burnt wood created a ice cream made with burnt wood, so it tasted like literally like burnt wood. The other pair here on the right is like a river painting. That is painting I make by leaving just blank canvas on riverbeds. So the blank canvas just gathers, like in the same example of the ice cream gathering that flavor in the fridge, it just gathers like the organisms in the bottom of the river, so algae grows on it, like mold, and different, like all the sediments of the rivers, all the things that have deposited in the bottom of river, almost like the history of what was around the river just gathers in that painting. And the other one under it is buried, which has been buried in dirt. So in that same principle, it's just like gathered all those bacteria that leave and just like then move, like they move to that canvas. So I'm gonna go quick. Those are the images. That was the ice cream. And so yeah, that was just a link to the project I did here, which the departure was that sensitivity, that being aware and the feeling of all the environment, the exterior stimulus, and like that one. I mean, that first image I chose to talk about the project that we have here. So the mime sculptures. It's a research from that scientist called Paul Baccarita. It's like in the 60s, worked on sensory substitution. So it's like translation of different senses. So you, like that example here is like for visually impaired people can be aware of light variations and volumes in space via a device, electronic device, that they can feel electrical stimulus in their tongue. So it's like they wear, it's called a lollipop, which is a little thing that they wear that in their mouth, and not being able to see anything, being blind, they sense like the map the different sensors in their tongue, and then recreate. The brain converts those, like after like 2 months or 3 months training, they manage to ride a bike or just like move around and sense different light volumes that are created through light and shades. And so that was kind of a departure for, this is another example, instead of the tongue, it's for the belly. So just like pressure points that you apply that on your belly, and then after 2 months, if you really use that a lot and just like train that, you know that there's light on the right, and then you feel like if it's touching your belly on the right, then your brain just connects and you forget that it's actually your belly being touched, but it's an object in space, in the same way that you forget that your eyes are just flickering when there's, I don't know, like a dust coming to your eye or something. Yeah, that other image I put as well, like as a reference to that project here, is mountain climbers, and how in the same way you can't really with your eyes only see where you like all the access points as you're going through a cliff. So I just put like some images of the actual works, existing works that the mimes are doing in the space. I try to make quick drawings in the sheets of paper, like if people want to, as they see the mimes creating the volumes, if they want to refer to the actual sculptures. But still, it's always a picture, and there's like, you always lose so much, and I feel like that's really maybe the thing that is the most important to me in art, is really being present and seeing and being part of it. It's really being eating the salad, like being aware of the acidity in your mouth of that salad, and not seeing a picture of a salad being given to someone else, and really having that very difference of the feeling, and the feeling in the very all the meanings of that word. And so, I mean, we're still going to look at some pictures, but so the departure of the choices of the sculpture, which was pretty hard to choose between all the ranges of all sculptures ever made, because you always like think, I mean, of the volume and how you can apprehend sculptures. But anyways, so I basically chose between those two, say, styles of paintings, which are like icons of post-war modernist sculptures, and David Smith and Henry Moore, and as a departure from a kind of a fight between Clement Greenberg, who was American and trying to fight for the eye and the graphic and the composition, like almost like forms made by machine that are assemblage and collage, versus Henry Moore, was defended by Herbert Reed, art historian as well, but a completely different school, who was also a poet, who was like very much into the idea of touching and feeling of the volumes of sculpture. It was really like a very personal experience where you could not necessarily share with others, but you could experience by touching the sculpture, of course, touching the sculpture in outer limit that the guards might tap on your shoulder to prevent you from doing so, for most of them, not all of them. And so yeah, just to go on with the images, Barbara Epworth, one of the ones that is there, who is actually right now on those sculptures. Yeah, I'll just finish with that. And yeah, and so like maybe just some images, but I think again it's also very deceptive. I feel like to look at images when I don't know, like the idea of volume is very much of your like that piece only shows a moment of the form in a way that's like, I mean, it looks pretty ridiculous now to see that like what that mime is doing now is just is the head of a Giacometti sculpture, and you're missing the whole sculpture, but the sculpture is there if you manage to memorize it. I mean, or create the rest of the shape in your head, but to create the rest of the shape, you have to attend and just see all those movements and like be aware of the volume as being present, really.
What is very interesting to see is that you go from one state of representation to another, and you interrelate them in such an elegant way. But basically you have the representation of the human body in a lot of those sculptures, and it was like they use metal as a material and a form, but it's obvious that viewers are going to identify with it and building up a relation to it. And actually those bodies have been removed or have been made invisible, and they are only around through the performing body, which is also a form of representation, because they are also kind of they also have like a model view that activates our brain. There was a very interesting scientific research at Columbia University where they could show that the viewer of a sculpture actually takes on the information of the sculpted body and overrides the information of his own body. So it seems to be that looking at sculpture is kind of almost like schizophrenic positioning of the own body. It's kind of a stereo effect of two different bodies merge. And it seems obvious to me that the performing body is even much more dynamic and can respond in a much more immediate way. And what is very interesting in regards to community is that it's not one performing body, but it's a community of performing body. So it's like an organization of individuals that respond to a certain order, to a certain vocabulary of motion also. And they are a community. Like we are watching also a community that is alive and well organized, which I think is a completely different state than the sculptural reality.
It's always. I mean, that idea of community in that is very. I feel like it's in many levels, like you said, and I feel like. I don't know. It's always hard. I mean, for myself to relate to. I mean, not to relate, but to associate or link with that idea of community, when I feel like it's really with like always from a personal point of view, but being aware, and I feel like it's, I guess maybe that difficult question of like how is it in a group, like what you said, like you leave your ego outside, but that means also like you making a work on yourself to be open to the others, and that does require some. It's maybe not ego, but it does require some personal effort that is not only, I mean, it's always towards the benefits of the group, but to have that openness and sensibility and awareness of the people around you. And I feel like that's really in that way that I like to approach the group, like always like trying to engage and be the one also engaging. I mean, as an artist, you're producing, you're like making the movement, and you're like you try to put things in motion, and then like you try to set up things in motion in a group. But like, so yeah, that idea of, it's, I don't know, a group is also like singular people together. Yeah.
Maybe we should talk and open the discussion and maybe talk a little bit more about this, the creation in community. So basically to open up also the act of creation and to delegate it to many peoples and to kind of connect and pick brains and pick creativity. And on the other hand, like this idea of creating community, and that eventually one of the of the artistic material and the creation of artistic identity is the creation of a community.
Forgive me, Gianni, but we have a new member of the group. His name is Logan Sedgwick from upstate New York. I'm going to give him my chair. We're going to create community. Come on now. Give him a hand, everybody. It's his first public speaking engagement.
Welcome.
Hello.
Do you want to respond right away, or do you want to warm up for 2 or 3 minutes and get used to the stage light?
Yeah, I'll warm up for a few minutes.
Okay. Okay. Alison, I think it would be interesting from you, to hear more about like the idea of creation in that fluxus spirit, and like the concept of authorship, and if eventually how much the concept of authorship has been overcome during those fluxus years.
I'm very happy to say that within the Fluxus group, and we traveled all over the world to many countries, there were some outstanding performances that I think kicked off a lot of good work in theater. And there were just some people in the group who loved to be on the stage and loved to present solo pieces. But the basic power of the group was the community. And the fact that we could meet a curator who would say, I want to see this Yoko Ono piece, or I want to see the Joseph Beuys piece. And we could work around that. I can't credit enough George himself, George Machunas, very strange man, but somehow his talents worked with many different kinds of people, and
he was also basically the inventor of the New York loft, or to use those industrial
very
spaces
good.
in Soho.
I got one of those lofts.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that was probably an ideal state of production of art making. It was like each artist more or less had a loft for him or herself, and that was a great living quarter, but obviously also a great performing space.
True, but New York was different then. And when I first moved there from Brooklyn and Pratt Institute, there were many lofts to choose from, many different spaces, and it depended if you were a sculptor and you needed a tremendous area, or whether you were a conceptual artist, you just needed a bathroom, a kitchen, and a bedroom. So just those things have all changed. And now I realize that if all else fails, I can sell my loft for $1 million.
And run away.
And run away.
Okay.
Also, I'm going back to creating is important, because part of the reason that we're together is because we created something to unify us. And a lot of people sit around and they say, I want to do this, I want to do that, but they really don't have the, they don't do anything about it. They just sit around and talk. And you really have to make something to bring people together. What I love about your work is with the salad is that you're bringing all sorts of people together for this one cause. And how we met Logan from upstate was that he decided to be part of this contest, and he decided to do this drawing, to make something. And so we were visiting artists, and we saw what he made. If he didn't make that, if he didn't do that drawing, he probably wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have met him. So that's why it's important that people, even if you fail, we've had a lot of failures in our studio and throughout the years, but it's about learning and evolving from those failures.
Maybe to ask you, there's another artist who came to the Bronx, I think, 4 years ago, Thomas Hirshhorn, and did the Gramsci Monument in the middle of a project. Where you have you visited the project? Do people still talk about it? Has it left any? I mean, there was more kind of a short time intervention, obviously, because it was up for a summer, and then it was taken down. The material was there was a lottery, I think, where they gave away the computes and everything, and then it was just gone.
It's funny because what I love about that work is that people from all over the world would come to the Bronx, and people from Manhattan who have never visited the Bronx were going to the Bronx because of that work. You know, it was bringing communities together. It was breaking those borders, and it was the creation of an artwork that can do that. Music does it, theater does it, but there's something about art, the visual arts, that breaks down all those borders, all those lines.
I think you have to say that with performance art, you have to have somebody who believes in what they're doing. And if that person isn't on the stage and someone's just acting out a piece, they might as well be in theater. Something about performance art asks for belief in what you're doing.
Interesting that you speak about theater. We spoke briefly about dance. And it seems to be that there's a strong influence actually from those arts, also because of the way they are organized and the way they handle basically the many authors, you know, the presence of many.
But I think the difference between theater and performance art is like steak and ice cream. I mean, it's completely different situation. And people who are in theater, they very often cannot adapt to doing performance art.
I mean, which is, for example, also shown in the fact that in theater you still have a stage and a viewer room.
Someone gives you your lines and
Yeah.
gives you your gestures. And in performance art, you better not get out there unless you yourself believe in the piece. I guess I just said that, right?
It is indeed a lot of effort and usually as artists, and that's true, I am part of one who try to push performers, and I'm very, very grateful of all the energy they make, especially when I'm not always on stage, and I work with people that dance or play, or it is a tremendous amount of energy that they're putting there, and it's true, and still it's very hard to get some money for them to perform in the context of the art world today, and it's always difficult to have them because people don't pay tickets to go see performance, and it's always the only thing that brings them together is that energy and that will and that passion on the project that really can keep that together. Of course, we can all try to move things so that there's also respect in paying them and having them in good conditions and really respecting the whole work. But I think that's very, very important to address that as well. That's true. All the performers that are part of a piece, they really have to be very into it, very with their heart. It's true.
Thank you very much. I think we covered a lot of ground, and it's very inspiring.
Does anybody in the audience have a burning question for us? Say something. There, speak. What do you want to say?
Thank you. I'm interested in the fact that when you are making works which create community, it's done within the context of an existing community, so that the work is actually transforming the community from one state to another. Can you speak a little bit more about that transformation?
I think that someone who steps up out of their community base to be part of a work or to offer a work is they're my hero, because that's what we hope to do. We hope to offer work into the community that excites them to do something themselves or to make their own work, or change something in your life?
I think we are a bit. One more question?
I'm interested in what Alison said at the very end, the distinction between theater and performance art, but on perhaps a different ground. Speaking economically, that it always has occurred to me that we go to art galleries and very often see performance pieces, and there's no charge. It's almost a retail environment. You know, you're going in and you're shopping for a piece in a funny kind of way. Whereas for theater, and very often for music, we pay for that performance because there's nothing that we can take away from it. So I wonder how that feeds into what you're doing with community and whether there's a distinction between the economic value of what you're doing and other pieces around where it's not a community-based project.
All right.
Was-
Gianni, you might be the best person here who can answer the
I
question. I don't know.
haven't probably understood
think
the
it's-
whole question.
Opening a can of worms, which is a very interesting milestone in any panel discussion, but I think it's too late to go in there.
Yeah, it's kind of a very broad. Yeah.
But thank you very much for the brilliant question. But I think we should stop here. We have a lot of question marks for sure, but I think that's how it should be. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.